I'm Rick Warren. I am 70 years old. I'm in Portland, Oregon.
I'm Karen Bell. I'm 78. I'm in Beaverton, Oregon. And Rick and I worked together for many years. I retired almost 13 years ago.
Now, I know that you didn't start your career in hospice. What led you to think that that would be a good career path for you, or that that was a good way to provide care for patients?
Well, I started nursing school in 1960, and I went to a hospital training program, which was pretty much the norm at the time. People didn't go to college to become nurses. We were never taught or talked about recognizing when a patient was entering the dying phase of their life. And it wasn't uncommon to walk into a patient's room and find the patient had expired or died. What happened next was that you went and found the nurse that was in charge of your unit, and you told them the patient had died, and then they called the family, and the standard message given to the family was that there's been a change in your husband, your wife's condition, and you need to come to the hospital. And if there was a student nurse on the unit, they were sent to stand by the elevator to catch the family when they got off the elevator and take them to an empty room. And then either the doctor or a charge nurse went in and told them the patient had died. Then they were given a paper bag, literally with their family members' belongings, and they left the hospital, and that was it.
Oh, boy.
And I never thought much about it because that's the way it was until in the mid-1970s, Dr. Cicely Saunders, who was the founder of St. Christopher's Hospice in England and London, came to Portland to give a talk. And I can remember there was a huge auditorium. It was packed with people. And I remember her talking about the hospice program there and how she started it. And it just resonated with me.
Yeah, we didn't do that then, did we?
I mean, and the doctors didn't do it either. Not that anybody was meaningfully being difficult or hard or harsh. It just was the way it was. Death was kind of not something people talked about in the hospital. People didn't go to the hospital to die. They went to the hospital to get better. And if they died, it was not what was expected.
You went to St. Vincent's.
This was in the mid-70s. And about that time, as I said, Dr. Saunders was here in Portland. And there was a number of programs around the state. And there were a lot of people talking about hospice care. And it really began in Oregon about the mid-70s. And then in December of 1984, Greg Van Pelt was the administrator at the hospital at the time, and he said, we're going to have a hospice program.
What a daunting task that must be,
Yeah,
almost with no roadmap.
But people in Oregon were so collaborative. I would call and say, do you have a policy on this, or do you have a policy on that? And they would send it to me. Everybody helped everybody else out and answered questions and provided support. Well, I was a staff.
You were it, huh?
I was a hospice person. So it took a long time to eventually add more social workers, add nurses, that we had a dedicated team of our own. And we said we started out with one patient. And when I left in January of 2008, the census was 500 patients.
Wow. How was that to be the staff member taking care of 1 or 5 patients?
I would go to the doctors would call me and say, could you come up and talk to this patient in the hospital, which I'd do that. Or sometimes they'd ask me to go to the home, and I was a single parent. So I bundled up my kids and we drove over to the patient's house.
That's really so much of what makes hospice special, that collaboration and coordination. So it really allowed you to provide what the patient needed most, whether that was a chaplain or a social worker or a bathing aide, or it really brings the patient and family in to share in that decision making. And they get to say what they think is most important and what they need most. And it's our job to help provide that, because who knows better what they need than they do.
It initiated those conversations that a doctor couldn't bring up or the family couldn't bring up. And that's the thing that when I think about hospice and palliative care, we met the patients where they were and the family. We weren't imposing anything on them. We really were very sensitive to what their understanding was, and we took a lot of time and effort to get to their understanding and met them there and took it from there. To me is what hospice is all about. Yeah, let these people travel at their own pace. I mean, that's their journey. And I could really appreciate that.
You get to start those conversations with family even earlier, so you don't have to wait until there's that terminal or 6-month prognosis, so that you're not approaching the 11th hour with no idea that this is upon you, and maybe having missed the opportunity to do and say really important things.
I give Providence a tremendous amount of credit, you personally, but Providence for recognizing that and allowing people that have the skill to talk to doctors.
Any final thoughts, Karen, looking back at many years of service?
Yeah, I think it's kind of overwhelming in some ways to think that all that has been accomplished. It's a very unique experience that we were in at the very early days of this. I'm very appreciative that I had that opportunity to do what I did and work with people that I have worked with. Both my parents died on hospice, and so I personally know the value of the program and the support that they provided to my family.
Yeah, gratitude is the word.
Experience of a lifetime.
Well, thank you, Karen. Thanks for everything you've done.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you as well. Let's talk again.
We will.